Good evening, everyone. My name is Arvind Nadig, and we met in the previous session of Lean Startup, where we discussed few important elements and the framework of how a lean startup is designed and structured. So today we're going to take that session forward with understanding how we apply these principles to real life problems or real life startups and actually try and determine value proposition and validate our value proposition or what we call as hypothesis through building minimum viable products and taking it to market. So today we are going to more talk about the implementation part of the lean startup. Yesterday we spoke about the canvas. We've started working on the canvas. So there are a few more elements that we need to fill out in the canvas today. So we will get started with that, have a look at that in detail, and eventually try and see what is those fundamental things that we need to do to eliminate uncertainty and to prove our hypothesis. And what should we do if our hypothesis fails? If it fails early on or if it fails later, but as soon as the hypothesis fails, what is it that we need to do? That is the most important question that we need to answer. And in fact, the whole lean startup model is revolving around that particular learning that we get. So what I'll do now is I'll do a very quick recap. So essentially, this is the framework that we wanted to cover yesterday, and most of it we covered. Today, we are mostly focusing on the MVP element as well as the canvas so that we can fill out the canvas and be ready for our lean startup. Essentially, what we were talking about yesterday is the lean startup structure. And this was introduced by Eric Ries. He's an entrepreneur and he evangelized this concept of lean startup. And this book is available as well as a lot of resources are available online. Go have a look at that and see if you can leverage some value out of that. So a lean startup essentially has this feedback loop, which starts with idea, build, product, measure, learn, and obviously validate with data. So this is like a cycle process. So essentially, if we look at the key elements that come out of a lean startup structure is, we assume to begin with that entrepreneurs are everywhere. This is a very, very, very important assumption. So yesterday, I didn't go into this in detail, but today I would like to kind of bring that out. Entrepreneurs are everywhere means that you don't have to really get into a garage, do everything yourself from the start. No. Entrepreneurship is about adding value, is about being enterprising. And the best way to do that is going to market quickly and start making a change. So for this, we can or we must identify what we call as key stakeholders. So it's very, very important to see who are the partners, the key partners that we have apart from our customers. And they are all treated at different points as entrepreneurs. So this itself makes the whole process lean because you're not saying that you're doing everything. You're going to identify partners and going to do and identify the key value proposition that we have. The second aspect is entrepreneurship is management, right? So this is a very important element because most of the times what we do is we kind of assume that management is not part of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is making a change, being disruptive, and so on and so forth. That's not true. Entrepreneurs are everywhere, and the whole process of entrepreneurship is managing your customers, managing your product, managing your team, and everything in a very structured manner. It's very important that you understand these two elements. And then the third aspect of startup is validated learning. Very, very, very important. So here we don't go by assumptions. In fact, we even break the assumption and say that everything is uncertain. So basically we say that nothing is given, nothing is sure. So everything is experiment and we start from that. This is very, very important. And only way we can take that forward is to have validated learning. And how validated learning is to go into the market, to go there, validate your hypothesis, not validate your product or not validate uh, the solution. It's the hypothesis. Whatever you have assumed, we need to go and be very clear. And how do you validate that? By building, measuring, and learning. So this is very important. Build, measure, learn. In fact, this is the cycle of lean startup. And finally, the last point that is innovation accounting. So what do you mean by innovation accounting? Is that when we build, measure, and learn, when we go through this cycle, what do we learn? So this learning has to be created into measurable metrics or measurable values. As I was mentioning yesterday, it's not about number of units that you sell, or it is not about number of cities that you go to. Those are very linear measurement tools. So for every business, you need to go and create the critical element of measurement, and that is your innovation accounting. So how do you work on those elements is actually going to decide, make or break your product or solution or your company eventually. So that's very important. So these were the 5 important elements of a lean startup framework, right? So then what we do is we will look at the things that we spoke about yesterday. I think idea and the design thinking process, you people are must have gone through this. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test was a design thinking cycle. So here, the evolution over that is the concept of build, measure, and learn, right? So that's the difference between design thinking or next step from design thinking. So here we come to the most important part, the empathizing part that we spoke about yesterday, as well as talking to humans. So here, this element becomes very critical while you are actually going and validating your hypothesis. So when you create a hypothesis, you make major assumptions that, this is my customer and my customer wants it. So what the biggest mistake we do is we jump into solution building, right? So before solution building, going lean means to go fast, is to develop speed, is by not building anything at all in the first place. To go and just simply invalidate the assumptions or validate the assumptions and then take the next step. So one of the most critical elements for that is what we call as talking to humans. And few things we need to look at is, how do we do this, right? Should we go to the customer or should we not go to the customer, ask questions, or what kind of questions, whom should we ask? All of this forms a basic structure. I don't want to go into this right now, but please refer to this particular book that is there, Talking to Humans, and you will get a fair idea. But essentially, we go and start validating a very fundamental assumption. Like if you see, does the problem really exist? That's what we try to go and see. Because most of the times we just assume that, yes, there is poverty and we need to eliminate poverty, right? But that is not a clear definition of what we are trying to set out to do. Because the problem exists at different levels. So the more clearly we can define the hypothesis and how we can validate is the whole cycle of a lean startup. Now, in this whole process, we have something that comes out of talking to humans, is what we call as value proposition. So I hope you can see this screen right now. So what I've done, if you go to the legend part of the screen, I have added a few more elements when compared to yesterday. I've just gone back and added in the problem, you define the problems that you want to solve. Next to that is the solution, right? So we had not written the ideas or the solutions for yesterday. So I would like you to go and explore that. And how do you write the solution is 2 main things, identify the key features and the key activities that you will do, right? So this is very important. So this is the assumption that you're making. You're saying these are the key features that I will be putting in my product or solution and in my company, and the key activities I need to do for that, right? So these are the 2 main important things that I would want you to fill out right away. When you say key features, let's get into the details of it. Like when we call as key features, I'm not sure if anybody has even tried to fill this. Yes. So somebody says, tab-based teacher-controlled learning platform. So this is a solution, right? So I don't want the solution in that way. Or if you look at FabCut, what does FabCut written to solve the problem of waiting? No, this is to solve the problem of waiting is what you want to do, right? It is not the solution or it's not a feature, right? In which the app is a feature. So now you need to go and write these as key activities. What are the key activities that is involved in creating this solution? So let me explain this to you a little more in detail. For example, if we have to do a workshop, right? For example, if I'm doing this WebEx based workshop today, what are the key activities that I need to look at? What are the key things that I need to, or what are the key features of this workshop? Or any of these workshops. So if I'm doing an online workshop, so first and foremost, is the workshop online or is it physical workshop, right? So that's where we start with. So the key assumption we're making is people will attend online workshops. The only way to know that is to not start the workshop, but to get the registration process going. So even without having any framework, without having anything, we can just put out a Google form and get you to register. So once we register, just make a poster and put it out. So in fact, I have started the program by putting out a poster and going out there. So this is what we call as MVP. So I'm just taking a step where I am getting into the market. So it is not a MVP and it is called an MVE or a minimum viable experiment, right? So this is how we start with. So the key feature here is that we need to get people to register first and only then participate. It's not like we launch the program and then we hope for people to participate. No. So the key feature of this whole program is that they should register first, right? So that is one of the key features. So we need to build a framework for that registration process to happen seamlessly, right? So that's the bottleneck. That's the assumption that people will register. And only if we have registrations, then we can go out and start building the curriculum and courses in detail, right? Depending on who registered. So that is the learning and data loop. So I can give out a framework for the workshop. I can say these are the 5 things that I will teach in the workshop. I don't have to go and be fully detailed about what I'm going to do or actually even spend time building this workshop. I can put out the registration process and then I can wait for people to register, right? So as people register, now if we look at the loop, right? So I'm going to talk about a simple workshop as an example in my session, right? So if you look at Li2, what I'm going to say is the key feature is registration. So now what is if you go back to the legend part of it here, what is it that I am looking at is also I am talking about key partners, right? So if you go to the right of the screen, here we have channels, right? So in the channels, we have something called as how do we reach out to the customers and who are the key partners who will enable us to reach out to customers, right? So this becomes a channel, which is very, very important. So in my whole thing, one of the key channels or the key partner is going to be the trainer himself or herself, who is an expert. So this is very, very important. And in fact, what happens is it's very important because during registration, what is the value proposition is course topic in the first place. The next value proposition that I can give is credibility, right? So how do you build credibility and why would people want to come to us? Right? And the third value proposition that we would want to bring is the expert or the trainer himself or herself, right? So the trainer becomes very important here. Somebody who's talking about lean startups who's not started a company might be irrelevant, right? So that's very important here. So the cost structure. So the big cost is going to be trainer or expert. Right? Now, what is the next thing that we go and do? Who is the customer, right? Dense. Now, what is going to be my revenue stream? So in this particular workshop, the customer is not only student, but the customer also for us is going to be the sponsor. Because this is a free program. In this case, it is Cisco. So we go backwards and see who the customer is and who the revenue stream is. So revenue stream is for this particular program, it is through the sponsor and students don't pay. So that is an unfair advantage that I have with respect to other workshops. What is the unfair advantage I have is free for students, right? Because you don't have to pay. If the same workshop, if I had done and asked you to pay, then maybe we would have had lesser participation, or I don't know. Because the other value proposition, unique value proposition we are having, is that it is credibility and expert is the same thing. So the other value proposition here we have. I hope you people are following. The other value proposition that we have here is that it is online free perpetual content, right? So this is going to remain online for forever, right? So I'm going to put this up. You people can come back and read and use this later also. So that becomes a very, very important value proposition, right? So the unfair advantage also we have here is that it is a online learning management system and course, right? So this is online and it is perpetually available. So that's an unfair advantage that we have compared to other people, right? So what is the key metrics that we will follow here and a thing here? Again, the key metrics that we measure is for two people. One is student learning. The other one is sponsor reporting. Then the third one is impact. Did something happen, right? So this is the other value proposition that we can bring out is we say mentoring. So this is how we go on structure this whole thing. So the revenue stream is clear, cost structure is clear. So now we go and say what is the solution, what is the assumption that we are making here is going to come in the solution. The solution is first step is registration. So what we do is the first assumption is registration. I hope you people are following. I'm not even looking at the screen. I'm just going on talking. So first is registration. The second thing is evaluate participants and take feedback. So the assumption we make here is that if this was already decided, but in most of the workshops we see who's registered, then we write to them, and then we kind of understand the thing. So that kind of becomes a huge advantage for us because they're going lean here very fast. We have registrations, people have paid and become part of the program. Then we do the analysis, we validate, and then the actual solution comes in. That is course development. In fact, here, the course development, one of the biggest assumptions we are making here is that after registration, I can get the course developed according to the needs of who has registered and what they want to do, right? So for that, the key partner, the most important channel on how we reach out to the end user is going to be the trainer. So that we need to assume or we need to really depend on the trainer for getting or for being able to develop this content so quickly, right? So the key partner, very important that we validate and work with the trainer closely. So this becomes a critical element. And that's why we say entrepreneurs are everywhere, because even in your projects that you're trying to do, say, if you look at FabCuts or if you look at Nishant Kumar's project, the same thing will be happening. So what are the channels? We'll be reaching out to the general public through government, right? So here the key partner is the government themselves, right? So it's an assumption that we're making that the government is good and they will want to do it. So now we need to go and define what is the value proposition for the government to look at this particular thing. The second thing we need to look here is delivery systems, right? You're going to take medicines from point A to point B. So how do you get a delivery system going? So another partner that you will be needing here, key partner will be supply chain, delivery. So, and that is also going to become your cost, right? Supply chain or delivery is going to be your cost. So let me put that in a different color so that I don't interfere with your content. So one of your major cost is going to be supply chain delivery. So you need to find entrepreneurs are everywhere in this ecosystem. You need to already find somebody there who's willing to work with you at what cost. Once you understand that cost, only then you will be able to determine your revenue stream, right? So customer is Asha worker is what you've written as a customer. They are going to be one of your end users. So there has to be a value proposition to them, but they are not your revenue stream, right? Asha workers is not. So what is your revenue stream? Will work in liaison with the government. So this is the biggest assumption I'm making here. So your hypothesis has to be broken without even starting your supply chain, without you building your app or any of these things. First and foremost assumption that you're making is uncertainty of market, uncertainty of customer, both. So is there a customer? So the problem exists. So this is a beautiful problem to look at lean startup model here, because the problem exists. In so many problems, people are poor, people need medication, people need blah blah blah, right? But the question I'm asking is there a market? Is there a market for this? The other thing that you need to do is customer, right? Customer is there. So usually when we go in a non-lean model, we have an idea, we build a solution and then take it to market. And then the whole damn thing might just explode right in our face because the whole assumption system has crashed. Because then we go talk to the government. I have this app, I have this ecosystem, I have this method, I have this drone delivery and blah, 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 whatever it is. We start working on those things. And then we finally realize that it is not going to work. So here in the lean startup structure, we just have flipped this whole thing around, right? We have just, so here we were in Nishant's project idea, and here we saw that we assume that the customer is going to be government, medical service people, catering to remote areas and villages, and ASHA workers, right? This is a major assumption we are making, because where is the value proposition? So as soon as you write value proposition, you need to write value proposition. I'm going to just short form it to VP1, VP2, VP3, where your one is medical, whoever it is. Then there's the government. Then there is the ASHA worker, right? So do you see the value of this canvas? It's so good because you can very immediately look at, start building this into a framework and within no time. So this is why it's lean, because you're able to get to the root of the problem very quickly, right? In a visual manner in the canvas. But this is not lean startup. Lean startup is not building this canvas. Lean startup is understanding what is your hypothesis. Your hypothesis here, according to me, more than all of this, is that government will partner and government will pay me money. This is your biggest assumption that you're making, because in the end of the day, the business or any startup or anything is only these two, right? The bottom two tabs that we see are the most important tabs: the cost structure and the cost structure as well as the revenue stream. This two is the most important things, right? So cost structure, where is the cost going to come to you? The cost to you is supply chain delivery. You're saying I'm going to take medicines to a rural place. Why people have not yet taken? Do you think Ranbaxy or do you think Dr. Reddy's are not interested in selling medicines to villagers? They are. The problem is this: how do you take it there and at the right time, quickly, at a low cost? Because all of this supply chain cost is going to add up to your final solution. And this cost you're expecting the government to. Now, you need to go and validate this hypothesis. So you go and tell me how are you going to break that hypothesis? Government will pay. Right? Whatever, I'm not going to fill this up. But if I have to go and validate only that. So what is needed for government will pay to be validated? If So come up with ideas for that. And that is your solution, right? The solution is that. Now, I'm not talking about fastest delivery of emergency medicine is not a solution. Those are ideas. The solution is how will you make government pay? So do you understand the difference? So this is not what I'm looking for. These are all stories, right? So I would like to label these as storytelling. Sorry, but that's what it is. These are storytelling. I don't care. Nobody cares about this. Fastest delivery of emergency medicine is not a solution. This is your goal. This is your vision, right? This is your vision. You're going to validate your vision with data, right? That is what MVP is all about. The biggest assumption you're making here is that government will pay. Because I know for a fact that yes, there is a need or there is a thing for medicine delivery system to be better in villages and rural places. That's kind of understood. But the thing is, why people have not done it? That's the hypothesis. Your assumption is government will pay. If government would have paid, will government? The next question I'm asking is unfair advantage. Who has the unfair advantage? If government is paying, Dr. Reddy's or any big pharma company would have taken the money from the government because they have the unfair advantage of reach. They have the unfair advantage of source, that is, they're able to manufacture these drugs. So they have the supply chain already in place. So they will take it. They will take the money from government and they will do it. Why are you coming into picture? So what is your value proposition here? What is the unfair advantage that you have that those people don't have? This is what you need to find out. If this answer comes out, then you have a business. Until then, you don't have a business case here. You have a great idea, you have whatever you want to call it, but it's of no meaning to us. Is this clear, people? Is this clear? At this point, somebody was really asking about value proposition and questions like that yesterday. So this is where I would want you to go and fill out now, the way I did it for Nishant's project as well as a little bit thing for Li2's this particular workshop, because I wanted you to understand the difference between solution and vision, right? You are all writing vision in solution. That is not a solution. That is what you want to do, right? So vision is there, but vision through iteration, vision through constant validation and testing is what lean startup is all about. How quickly can you validate and test your vision, right? So that is where we come to what we call as prototyping. So prototyping is a process of research and validation where we go and demonstrate this concept. So you need to go build out a prototype to demonstrate it to the government, your team, convince them and all of that. But that is not an MVP. Okay, so let me just make it very clear that I build a prototype is a process. It's a structure to validate a certain assumption on functionality or certain hypothesis. Now, MVP is a minimum viable solution where, or a product where people are willing to pay money. People will put money on the table. So you are in sales right now. MVP is entering into sales mode. So in lean, what we say is go to the market right away, right? If it fails, it fails. If it doesn't fail, then you are already moving faster than anybody else. This is the core concept. This is the core concept of lean, where we go and say that I build out a prototype and make it into an MVP. That is, it is something that is sellable, or it is, don't take me wrong, it is not the final product. It is something that has viability of business, right? Viability of business versus a prototype. A prototype is to test, research, validate a concept of functionality or anything that is. So you build out a prototype, but how do you? When does that become an MVP? Is when money starts coming on the table, right? So what I mean by that is, if Nishant has to go to a government side and get them to say yes, I'm going to pay, how does this work? So you don't really have to do anything, right? You don't really have to build out the entire solution and make out a tender or an offer to the government. You can just go with a presentation and say, boss, this is what I'm doing. I'm already ready. Will you fund me? Will you back me? What are the schemes? What are the policies? Where should I go apply? Where is the money available? Will you give me loan? Will you give me this? Will you give me that? That is one way of doing it. That is an MVP for us. And it is, I'm going to just highlight that a little more detail in case of, especially in this case of Nishant's project that we are talking here. We don't even need an MVP, right? We just need the experiment is more effective in many cases. So in your case, you don't even need to build a viable product. You just need to do a minimum viable experiment. Okay, it costs 0 rupees, virtually 0 rupees. This is an experiment where you go and hit out. Talking to humans part comes into picture here, where we directly reach out to the IAS officer, write an email saying I'm from this so and so NIT, I'm an IIT, whatever story you have. This is my company, and this is what I want to do. I want your meeting. If you get a meeting and he or she, the IAS officer or somebody who's part of this, gives you a hearing, that itself is a huge validation. Huge validation that there is a problem that the government is looking to solve here, right? So once you can crack that, then we can then look at the next aspect: how much will government pay and why will government pay? Is this clear, people? So the whole point of this exercise is what? Validates or negates your hypothesis. The whole time. Please remember, it is, we always get carried away. We always get carried away with functionality. I am not even talking about functionality in lean. In lean, we are not bothered about functionality. Why we are not bothered about functionality is because lean is uncertainty. What is uncertainty? Uncertainty of market, uncertainty of solution, right? I do not know if my solution is going to work. I do not know if at all I have a customer or a market in the first place. So nothing is sure. So what are you trying to validate? Oh, I'm going to build a rocket that can fly. Fine, great. So what? Doesn't mean anything. You might have built the perfect rocket, but who's going to pay for that? Who's going to sit in that? And what are you going to carry in that is more important, right? So that's what we validate in lean. And that is the hypothesis that if I build a rocket, people will buy my rocket, right? As simple as that. So if I have a drug delivery mechanism, or if I have an app for haircut, or if I have a tablet instead of a textbook, these are the three examples we spoke yesterday. Any of these things, the first and foremost question that you're trying to validate with your MVP is get money on the table, or do an experiment where there is show and tell. People want to put money on the table. That's it. Business is about that. So if we go to the canvas now I think the canvas will make a lot of sense. And I am hoping that if you're really serious about this whole story, then I'm pretty sure you will see value in this whole canvas here, where we say, I'm going to the legend first, where we say, cost structure and revenue streams. So cost structure and revenue streams should be filled out. And cost structure and revenue streams will get filled out. Most of the times, people forget that entrepreneurs are everywhere. So you go and start building the cost structure within yourself. That's not important. You're building partnership networks, your channels become important, and that becomes your cost. That becomes lean because you're fast. So in that case, what is it that I keep and what is it that I share with other people becomes your unique value propositions. So you work on your unique value propositions always and try and tell. The rest of it is going to be outside. So in this case of drug delivery, one of the critical cost structure is going to be the supply chain itself, right? The other cost structure is going to be obviously cost of drugs, right? Obviously, drugs or the service itself, emergency service or medical service or whatever that you're offering, that's the cost, right? So what is your unique value proposition? Are you a manufacturer of drugs? Yes or no? If yes, then that is your value proposition. And what is the unfair advantage you have for that? Do I have the advantage? No. So then I'm not going to do that. Next, the supply chain. Am I going to become a supply chain expert, or I'm going to become a lean system, or I'm going to become a very network-based system? I'm an app solution. So then where I go to the supply chain people as key partners. And both of these people are going to become key channels here, and they're going to be your key cost. So now, apart from these two staying, how will my business or solution still be meaningful? Because these two people coming together could probably go to the government and solve the problem. So if you answer that question and still people are willing to put money, then you have a business case. In the event, say for example, when we talk of fab cuts or any of these solutions, here again, what is your cost structure, right? So I want you to identify that. I'm not sure if the participant is there today, but then we can identify that cost structure here. And then what is the unfair advantage is something that we need to see very clearly and get out. Only then you're going to have a business case here. Like if at all people want an app, if at all the barber or the salon is willing to share their revenue with me, these are the validations I'm looking at. I'm not looking at can you build an app, because most of the time what you do here also, what is your solution? You're saying app through which I can book a seat easily. Yes, of course. I mean, like that is not your solution. That's your vision. In the end of the day, that's what is going to come out, right? That's a given. And what you will start doing, the biggest mistake that you would have done by now is actually started building your app, right? But building an app is a workshop for me, right? It is a just do an Android workshop, go online, build an app. Within 3 days, you will have a salon app. So what? I mean, like it's completely waste of time. I would rather get a QR code and put it in the barber shop and say, scan this QR code and you'll get 10% off, right? Or share this on Instagram and say, scan this QR code and you can go here and get a coupon. This is just to validate if people are interested to go digital about their salons, digital about their haircut, right? So that is the validation I'm looking for. Once you have that in place, once you have that coming into structure, then we will go and build an app. That is very easy. But what I'm going more interested in is what is your cost structure? What is your revenue? All of these are hypotheses that you need to evaluate and validate even before you start building anything, even before you set up the company, right? So that is the power of lean startup. So speed of what? Speed of validating or breaking your hypothesis. I'm going to tell that always, that everything is uncertain. The faster you can make things certain, the better your chances of survival and scale. So what is the next thing in case my whole thing collapses? Right? My hypothesis, government is not willing to pay. What should I do? Should I pivot or should I proceed? Should I proceed? So what is a pivot? So pivot is the final step, or persevere or continue, right? Persevere means continue. Pivot or persevere is the question that you ask once you actually finish your build, measure, learn loop. So once you have your build, measure, learn loop completed, so you build a hypothesis, then you build an MVP for that hypothesis, take it to market, measure it. What are you trying to measure, right? For every project, for every solution, it is different, right? So for us, or for, if you're doing, a haircut thing, what you're trying to measure is which customer is willing to do this. A customer who's already going to, say there is a salon, say there is a bounce or something like that. People go to bounce because, you gave the app, right? Or is that customer already going to bounce and they're taking the 20% advantage and also again coming there? Then you're actually making loss. So be very careful. How many people come on your app is not important. How many people who were not going to bounce are now coming to bounce is the better question, bigger question you need to ask. And that's what you need to validate. So that's what you're measuring. Please don't measure, I have 100 users on my app. Maybe Bounce, or I'm just taking a name, Bounce or any of these salons already have 100 customers. The same 100 customers came back through your app and gained a 20% benefit, which is a loss for you. So that is your revenue or cost structure for you. Who is going to pay for that? You're saying 10% of the revenue of the barber or the Bounce. So you're taking Bounce customer, giving back the bounce customer to bounce and asking them to pay 20% in which you're giving 10% discount is actually 20% loss to bounce. So your whole solution is creating loss rather than profit, right? So this is the validation you need to do. Are you getting customer from some other place, from other salon to bounce? That is what you need to measure. So what you measure becomes extremely, extremely important. Right. So if I have to go back to your solution here, what are we going to measure? Key metrics here. This is not about time. This is about, key metrics is new customer to each salon. That is the metrics. And that is also your value proposition. Right. And that is what it is. So now, what is the advantage you have that other people don't have is what you need to identify. I am not sure at this point, at least I am not able to answer this for you, but you might have to answer. So how do you reach out? So what are the channels? Is it digital? Is it offers? Is it QR stickers? Is it ads? Is it ads? So please remember, here you're making a grave assumption. It is not right for you to say, I'm going to build an app. Maybe app is the most stupid thing to do. Right? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not saying this idea. I'm saying maybe, that's why. I'm not sure. Right? I'm not sure what is going to work. Nobody is sure. And I'm not an expert. You should not listen to anybody actually, because nobody is an expert in this until unless you go and validate. The whole cycle of lean startup is that you go and validate. So this is not the solution. Your solution is going to be to break your hypothesis. What will you do? Right? That is your solution. And then what is your cost structure? Your cost structure is benefit to customer. So customers will come to you because you're giving. If they go directly to Bounce, they'll have to pay 100 rupees. If they come through you, they pay 90 rupees. Maybe that is your cost structure. So the 10 rupees has to be borne by somebody in this ecosystem. They are your channels or they are your key partners, right? So if you look at channels, there might be key partners. Who is your key partner? is I don't know who. Right? So this is how we go out and build our whole canvas. So this is I'm just blabbering and getting this canvas filled out. This is not the way you do it. You do it by talking to humans. You do it by actually going out. So now how we proceed is highly dependent on the outcome of build, measure, learn. In your build, measure, learn system, if the feedback loop fails, then you're not changing your vision. Please remember, you're changing your direction. What I mean by that is your vision is what you have written in your solution is your vision, right? Say if you talk of the drug delivery thing or app, the thing is that is your vision, right? That is not your solution, right? So you're going to not change the vision. I'm still going to make a drug delivery available, or I'm going to still make the, going to barber easy by saving time and blah, blah, blah. That is your vision. But the solution might not be an app, right? So the direction will shift from an app to an ad, or it might be a coupon system, or it might be something else. I don't know what. That is the change. That is what we call as pivot. Pivot is not changing your business model or the vision. Vision remains the same. Everybody have written solution. Whatever solution you have written is actually your vision. That will not change. Solutions will keep changing. And that is nothing but different directions or different approaches you will take. So that's why the word course corrections. The definition of pivot is a structure. Remember, it is not simply course correction. It's a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis, not hypothesis, fundamental hypothesis. These are very, very, very important words. Okay, I'm not just written it here. I've taken it directly from Eric Ries's book and I've put it here because every word here is important. Please look at it. It's a structured course correction. It is not simply, oh, I'm going there. This road is not good. I'll take another road. No. Structured, and how the structure comes in through build, measure, learn feedback loop. And then you go and say, what are you assuming or what are you checking is your fundamental hypothesis. That is your vision, right? You go and keep checking your vision. If this direction is working for my vision, if this direction is working for my vision, if this direction is working for my vision, and go on and go on and go on. And keep pivoting. If something clicks, then persevere until you have a final value proposition coming out and then the final solution, right? So vision is not changing. Different directions to reach the vision is what pivot is all about, okay? So with this, I think we have kind of, more or less come to a big, structure of lean startup, build, measure, loop cycle. And, we spoke about very, very critical elements like MVP, MVE, where MVE is an experiment to validate your hypothesis. And we also spoke about how to identify or how to get to value proposition. So remember, one of the things that we learned from the canvas is most of you are writing your vision in the solution part. I don't care. And even the problem, most of you are writing the problem as your vision. So problem is your vision. Solution is also your vision, which is not going to work because both of them are storytelling according. So what is your problem? What is your hypothesis? Should marry with each other. And then we start breaking that down through MVP and MVEs. And only then we can go and identify value propositions. Value proposition is very, very, very important. So once again, as a recap, value proposition is not about cost saving. Value proposition is a perception. Anybody who sees value. So that's what entrepreneurship is about. Entrepreneurship is about being useful. So I use the word enterprising. So if you are useful and resourceful to somebody else, then they see value in you. Then they see value in your product. Then they see value in your solution. and so on and so forth. So that value proposition is again not only for your customer, it is also for every end user. So that is why in the canvas we have value proposition separate and cost structure separate and revenue stream separate. Otherwise, value proposition and revenue stream should have been the same, because value proposition sometimes is not only for the person who is paying, but also for everybody in the ecosystem. Somebody mentioned Asha worker, or in our case, you're the student. Whole program that we're doing here is we want to Thingqbator to the Thingqbator cohorts to design, innovate, and create impactful solutions, right? So you are the key stakeholder, and we need to find value proposition for you in this. However, while doing that, you're not paying. So my revenue stream is not coming in from the student themselves at all, right? So very, very important for us to have value proposition for students, value proposition for the sponsor, which is Cisco, also value proposition for the key implementation foundation, that is NASCOM Foundation, should find value in partnering with us. So all of this together is a package for this. A simple workshop like this has so much going on behind. Because these value propositions have all met and come into existence, that's why this program is happening. And this program is also useful and meaningful because maybe 50 people attend this session now, but later 1,000 people can see this session later, and still the mentorship network is active. So this is a larger value proposition that we have here, right? So this is how you need to identify for you that the customer or the revenue stream is not same as value proposition, or not the same person's value proposition. There are more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. And in entrepreneurship, never forget about the value proposition that the entrepreneur and the entrepreneur's team is getting out of this whole thing, not the product or solution. And most importantly, why startup and why lean startup and why you want to be an entrepreneur in the first place. That is the value proposition that you need to answer. Start from there and go deeper and deeper. So these are all, as I mentioned, fundamental questions. So lean startup is a fundamental process. Design thinking is a fundamental process. These are not processes, or these are not formulae. These are fundamental. These are axioms, I would like to call it. Like, it's something that cannot be proven, but it's a process or a structure, right? So with this, I think I have kind of, touched upon various elements of design thinking various elements of lean startup. And I want you people to, at this point, go to a canvas and start working. Most importantly, what I want to hear from you is how this session can be of value to the startup or the idea that you are doing right now, and what we can add value. Listening to my story or listening to a story of somebody else could be inspiring, or it could be some learning for you. But most fundamental value that you will get out of this is if you can use this canvas or not, right? Is this canvas going to make your direction lean and take you faster to the end? That is first and foremost purpose why I am here to do this session. And also, in the first place, I am not equipped to answer about any of your canvases, because that is not my business. It is not my expertise also. Right now, I'm here as an expert to give you the lean canvas and the lean startup methodology. That's all. So with this methodology, can you reduce the risk of losing time, reduce the risk of unnecessary or wrong direction of investment, so that you go further and fail? How can I avoid that? That is what lean is going to help you with.
Sir, I am Shivakumar, sir.
Yes, Shiv Kumar, tell me.
Sir, I am a student pursuing third year, sir.
Mhm.
I want to become an entrepreneur. What is the expectation of investors, sir?
Investors. Okay. So what is the see? The investor is not even in the picture at this point. Why? If you don't define in the canvas, I don't even know what your entrepreneur or what you're trying to do. So the first and foremost thing is define value proposition. So even if I'm an investor, and if you're looking at some kind of revenue gap, that's why the cost structure, right? in the that's where the canvas comes into picture, and you have this cost structure where you have cost versus revenue. The two canvases, right? In the canvas, the two tabs. If the cost is higher than revenue and you need to cover that, that's when you need funding, right? So an investor then becomes a part of your customers segment or your channel, and also becomes a you need to identify value proposition for the investor. That means if they give you X amount of money, or if they give you X amount of resources right now, how are they going to benefit in the future? That is what you need to answer, right? So that is, there is no answer for that in terms of what an investor is looking for, because the investor will be looking for many things, right? It's just who the entrepreneur is, what vision they are trying to address, what is the team, what is the viability of the business, what is the scale of the business. All of these questions come into picture. So investors is a first of all a wrong question to ask right now, because investment, in my entrepreneurship workshop also I mentioned very clearly, investment is a consequence. Investment is not a milestone in any business, right? So if there is a negative cash influx that is there in the business, and you need cash influx because there is necessary for you to scale, then you take funding, right? And funding is not only from investors; it could be from bank, it could be a loan, it could be customers who can pay you money upfront. So all of these are all investments that you can take. But when you look of venture capital or investors, funding, it's not only about the money. It is also about what value they can bring in terms of scale, speed. So many things come into picture. So we need to evaluate all of that and only then take a call, Shivkumar. So, it's a very, very premature, early question right now on investors. You don't even think about that. You first answer why you want to be an entrepreneur and what problem you're trying to solve, and how is that meaningful to you, your team, and then how it's meaningful to whose problem you're trying to solve. That's the value proposition you need to create. Once you create that, everything else will fall into place. Whether investment is needed or not is a tertiary or a fourth question you will ask, not the first question. I hope I answered your question. Maybe it's disappointing, my answer, but that's what it is. We don't start businesses for investors. Investors follow us and invest in us because they see value, right? Nothing else.
Sir, while validating our ideas, how do we ensure that we protect them? Like we can come across many people who have many more unfair advantages than us.
Yes, yes. So that's why I said entrepreneurs are everywhere. That was the first thing we started. So don't see everybody as competition. And I think I started my whole session with this very simple thing, right? Idea, right? I'm also presenting that to you right now. We said idea is important. So how do you protect your ideas? Like, all of this I had put up. I have an idea and I won't tell you. So that's where we are. That's where you are right now on the screen. You can see on the left side. I have an idea and I won't tell you because you're scared that your idea will be stolen. There is nothing like that. Idea is not going to do anything to anybody. Right now, Nishant just now spoke about a great idea of medical delivery system, and I know it, and you know it. So what can you do about it? Nothing, right? So that's what it is. Even your idea could be that. So idea is not IP, according to me. So there's a lot of difference between idea and IP. So please differentiate that, and then we can see how, because unfair advantage, as the name says, is unfair. There is nothing you can do about it at all. Nobody has any control over that, because if you have an idea of, I don't know what your idea was. Is it the smart classroom? Is it your project? That we spoke about. Were you the person yesterday?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So smart classroom, maybe Byju's or somebody has unfair advantage over you, right? So, and you don't have to think about competing with Byju's or anybody of that scale, because That is not your value proposition. So your value proposition starts from where you are, your hypothesis. So you're already assuming, making a major assumption that my solution is already validated and somebody will steal my solution, which is good, because if somebody steals your solution, then then you have proof for now. That time you can go to an investor, right? That answers Shivkumar's question, that you built some solution and somebody stole it and they're able to make it successful. And why they are able to make it successful is because they have an unfair advantage of money and investment. So then you can go to an investor and say, see, they took my idea and they've done this. Now, if you give me money, I can go much faster than that because I have a deeper vision, right? So it's good. It's not bad, because in the end of the day, nobody can take the entire market. The market, you're talking about education market. I am in education market, and there are thousands of companies in education market, and it's an unending story. There's value proposition. There is disruption to be made on a daily basis, right? The system of education needs change. So you don't have to really, at least in your case, you don't have to worry. So stealing idea means, the best example is Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is apparently a small formula. It's written on a piece of paper, and it's 200-year-old company. Until today, nobody else can make another Coca-Cola, right? So that is how IPs are protected. So Coca-Cola is not an idea, right? Coca-Cola is an IP. That's a formula. So if you have something at that level, then you need to think of protection. Oh, I have to bring tablet into education system is okay. It's a nice idea. That's all. And you've told me already, and you've told 100 more people. And what can they do about it? Nothing. Nothing they can do about it, because what is important is the execution and how you structure and take it forward. So don't even bother about it. My point is, don't even think about it. Idea is of no meaning to anybody, right? It's the context and the way you're going to implement it that is what is going to make the difference. And for that, frameworks like design thinking and lean startup becomes very, very important. Is that clear? Because, if you are scared of your idea going out into the market, then there is no way. In fact, it is the exact opposite of what Lean talks about. Lean says go to the market immediately. You get it validated. If it fails, it fails. If it succeeds, it succeeds. Because if you wait for perfection and if you wait for the whole cycle to be, ready, that time is never going to happen according to the lean startup model. Until unless you are in some biotechnology and you're doing some vaccine or something like that, even in that case, if you see, we are talking of COVID-19, and today they're trying plasma therapy. They're trying some other therapy. 2 people in UK have been vaccinated already, and they're trying to see. So they themselves are going and validating at that level. If they're talking of medicine, they're talking of human life, and they are going and doing this. So you should not even bother, because idea is not going to do. I had spoken about this in detail in my entrepreneurship session also, and in design thinking also. Like Google was not the first search engine, right? Facebook was not the first social media platform, right? And they are the largest players in the world, right? So the first computer was not made by Microsoft, or the first mobile phone was not made by iPhone or Samsung or somebody, right? So or the first car is not Mercedes Benz or something else. It was Ford and things like that. So you do not have to be the first, and somebody can steal your idea and go ahead later. Or just because you are first need not be that you are going to be the biggest partner or the biggest stakeholder in the business. So idea will always be stolen. Ideas are meant to be stolen. It's about how you implement it. That's going to make the difference. Okay, so don't bother. Nothing is going to happen until unless you you go and start executing in the right way. If I were worried about somebody is going to steal the workshop idea, and today out of thousands of students that we have, there are at least 7 or 8 companies that I can name who have started robotics training or who have started some kind of hands-on training workshop company, right? So now, if I was scared about people stealing ideas and not do a workshop, then it's not going to work, right? So, and it's good because the whole vision is to do hands-on learning. So if somebody else wants to do hands-on learning, it's better to partner with them rather than saying, okay, they're my competition. Because how many students are there? I cannot cater to the 10 million students that are there in engineering in India, right? I don't have that kind of capability. So similarly, you will not have the capability to make tablets for a million students, right? So competition is good. Competition is validation for investment. Competition is also validation for you to understand that there is a market, right? Market, big enough market. So never ever fear competition, because without competition, it means that you're doing something that might not sell. There is probably no customer. And that's what I'm asking Nishant also, that nobody else is doing it. So uh, how is that you are able to do? Or so ask that question. You be fearful if there is no competition, uh, not the other way. So this is my email ID. My name is Arvind Nadig, as I mentioned, and my email ID is available here on the screen. You can write in, or you can also write into digital@li2.in to get your questions answered by mentors, as well as anything that you have. You can reach out to us on digital@li2.in. And please visit tqb.li2.in to finish off the other courses, get your certificates from this course, and all of that, right? So as a wrap, right now, I would like to just very quickly show you the slide of Lean Startup. What is Lean Startup about? Entrepreneurs are everywhere. Entrepreneurship is management, validated learning, build, measure, learn, loop, innovation accounting. Uh, this is the primary structure. It's in a circle and Lean Startup. And the most important thing about Lean Startup is the canvas that you're going to go and build out. We spoke about that in detail. So kindly keep this link, maybe make a copy of this. Look at key partners, look at cost structure, revenue structure, very, very important. Value proposition, bring in all of these elements together, and you're going to have a clear cut understanding of your canvas. And please remember that this is work in progress, and it is a loop, right? Validation, learning, and data. The data that you get and what you measure is very, very, very important. So keep in mind of that, and that's how the lean ecosystem is going to work, right? So thank you so much. I hope the last two sessions today and the previous session was quite meaningful to you. And I'm always available on the email ID that I shared to you in my presentation just a minute ago. At the end of this session right now, I'm going to again share it back. So we touched upon design thinking as a framework, and using that, we built on the lean startup framework. And then using that, we built out a canvas. And the purpose, I'm going to end it with this, and the purpose of lean is about speed. It's about validation, and it is about how you break your hypothesis or you persevere on your hypothesis to build value proposition, right? So it's about speed, and it is about validation, data driven validation. So this is what lean startup is. Refer Eric Rice, the book Lean Startup. That is where this whole thing started up, and it's been a pretty phenomenal success. Harvard Business Review has been recommending this process for many years now. So I hope that you found some meaning in this. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Stay safe, and wish you all the best. I'm going to share once again my email ID for you people to note down if you wish to stay in touch. So this is my contact details: an@li2.in. Li2 is our company, and the other email IDs are there, and the portal for the Thingqbator, where you can come back, get your questions, finish your quizzes, get certified, or do this course again if you missed it now. Maybe your friends can take this up on tqb.li2.in. Thank you so much. I hope this session was meaningful, and with your permission, I'm going to end this session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write to me on email, and we can stay in touch. All the best. Thank you so much.